The clock is not just ticking, it is screaming. Right now, as you watch this, the very definition of American accountability is being rewritten on the marble steps of the Supreme Court. In a move that has sent a high-voltage shock through the veins of Washington, the nation's highest court has dropped a legal hammer so heavy it could crush the financial foundations of the Trump empire. We are talking about a non-negotiable, 24-hour ultimatum that demands Donald Trump hand over his financial records or face the cold, hard reality of a jail cell. This is the ultimate showdown between a man who has spent a lifetime dancing around the law and a judicial system that has finally decided the music must stop. For years, the American public has watched a masterclass in procedural evasion and legal gymnastics. We have seen arguments about executive privilege stretched to their absolute breaking point, all in an attempt to keep a shroud of mystery over decades of tax returns and corporate filings. But the Supreme Court has just cut through that fog with a razor-sharp clarity that reminds us why this republic stands. The message is visceral: the law does not blink, it does not flinch, and it certainly does not care about your polling numbers. This is a moment where the authority of our institutions is being flexed against one of the most powerful figures in our history to ensure that transparency remains the bedrock of our democracy. This unprecedented mandate is not some routine clerical request or a minor speed bump in a long-running civil case. It is a federal order with teeth, backed by the full weight of the United States judiciary and the threat of immediate enforcement. Inside the halls of Mar-a-Lago and the war rooms of Trump Tower, the atmosphere is reportedly bordering on pure, unadulterated chaos. Attorneys who are used to months of discovery and years of appeals are now staring at a digital countdown that offers no exits. They are scrambling through mountains of ledgers and bank statements, knowing that a single missing signature or one suspicious transaction could trigger a contempt charge that lands a former president behind bars. The sheer speed of this order is what has left the legal world stunned and the political world in a frenzy. Usually, the wheels of justice grind slowly, but here, the Supreme Court has shifted into a gear we rarely see. It is a signal to every citizen and every leader that the integrity of our financial systems and the honesty of our leaders are not up for debate. We are witnessing a high-stakes stress test of the American Constitution in real time. If you believe that no one is above the law and want to stay informed as this historic 24-hour countdown unfolds, make sure to comment your thoughts below and subscribe to this channel for every breaking update. The analysis of this move goes deeper than just a set of documents, it goes to the heart of how we perceive power in America. For decades, the mythos of the billionaire-turned-president was built on a foundation of undisclosed assets and complex international dealings. Now, the Supreme Court is demanding a roadmap to that empire, looking for inconsistencies, hidden debts, and undervalued properties that could rewrite the narrative of his career. This is about protecting the sanctity of our financial institutions from any shadow of impropriety. If the records reveal a pattern of deception, it is not just a personal failure for Trump, but a challenge to the systems we rely on for a fair and honest marketplace. Critics on the right are already screaming about judicial overreach and the weaponization of the courts, but let's look at the facts of the matter. The judiciary is the final guardrail of our republic, the only thing standing between a nation of laws and a nation of men. By forcing this disclosure, the court is reinforcing the idea that the office of the presidency is a temporary trust, not a permanent shield against scrutiny. Every transaction, every loan, and every tax strategy is now a matter of national interest because the American people deserve to know the truth about those who lead them. This is the price of entry into the highest levels of American power, and the bill has finally come due. The pressure on Trump's legal team is beyond anything seen in modern legal history. Imagine the weight of reviewing 40 years of financial history in less time than it takes to fly across the Atlantic. Every line of a tax form is now a potential headline, and every account balance is a potential prosecutorial lever. They are dividing documents into piles of safe, sensitive, and catastrophic, knowing that the Supreme Court's language left zero room for negotiation or further delays. It is a war room on steroids where the stakes are nothing less than the freedom of a former commander-in-chief. If you value this deep dive analysis into the mechanics of American justice, please comment and subscribe to support our independent reporting. The scene inside Mar-a-Lago is being described by insiders as a high-pressure cooker nearing its breaking point. We are hearing reports of a legal team blindsided by the sheer aggression of the Supreme Court's timeline. While they had braced for impact, they never expected a 24-hour ultimatum that leaves no room for the typical slow-rolling tactics that have defined the Trump legal strategy for years. Senior attorneys are reportedly engaged in a frantic, around-the-clock scramble, dividing records into categories of high-risk sensitivity while trying to maintain some semblance of a narrative. This is the definition of a legal war room on steroids, where the stakes aren't just a fine or a slap on the wrist, but the potential incarceration of a former president of the United States. What makes this moment so perilous for the Trump camp is the absolute lack of wiggle room provided by the justices. The order was issued with a speed that stunned court staff and seasoned clerks alike, signaling that the judiciary is finished with the months of back-and-forth maneuvering. Legal analysts are pointing out that the Supreme Court has effectively stripped away the armor of executive privilege in this specific instance, ruling that the need for transparency and the rule of law outweighs any individual's desire for privacy. This is a decisive victory for the American principle that the presidency is an office of service, not a sanctuary for financial secrecy. The clock is a ticking bomb, and every hour that passes without compliance brings the threat of federal marshals closer to reality. Beyond the walls of the legal offices, the political fallout is spreading like a wildfire across the American landscape. On Capitol Hill, the reaction is as divided as the country itself, reflecting a deep-seated tension about the future of our institutions. Democrats are framing this as a long-overdue moment of accountability, a validation of the idea that justice must be blind to status. Meanwhile, a significant portion of the Republican base views this as a targeted strike, a weaponization of the highest court to influence the political trajectory of the country heading into 2026. This polarization is a test of our national character. Can we, as a people, trust the process even when it targets the most influential figures among us? The threat of contempt of court is no longer a theoretical debate for law school classrooms, it is a live wire. If the documents are not produced by the deadline, or if the court perceives any attempt to redact or hide critical information, the consequences are immediate and severe. We are talking about potential jail time, not just for the former president, but for the executives and custodians responsible for these records. The legal precedent is crystal clear: the Supreme Court does not tolerate willful disobedience. To stay on top of how this showdown between the judiciary and the Trump empire concludes, you need to comment your perspective below and subscribe to our channel for the latest developments. We have to look at what is actually in this treasure trove of records that has everyone so rattled. We are talking about decades of tax returns, loan agreements, and corporate filings that serve as a literal roadmap to the inner workings of a global business empire. Experts suggest that even minor discrepancies, things like undervalued properties for tax purposes versus overvalued properties for loan applications, could trigger a cascade of criminal investigations. This isn't just about political optics, it's about the integrity of the American financial system. If a leader can manipulate the system without consequence, it undermines the trust that every small business owner and taxpayer places in our economy. The optics of this situation are undeniably seismic for the American public. Imagine the image of federal agents enforcing a Supreme Court mandate against a former commander-in-chief. It is a scenario that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. Yet, this is the reality of our current era, where the boundaries of executive power are being tested and redefined in real time. The court is asserting its authority as a co-equal branch of government, proving that it will not be intimidated by political stature or the threat of public unrest. This is a moment of profound strength for the American judiciary, showing the world that our system of checks and balances is alive and well. Inside the media landscape, the frenzy is reaching a fever pitch. Every major network is tracking the countdown, with legal analysts dissecting every potential misstep. The pressure on Trump to comply is immense because the alternative, defiance, could alienate the moderate voters he needs to maintain his political influence. It is a double bind of historic proportions: comply and reveal secrets that could be professionally and personally devastating, or resist and risk a confrontation that could end in a jail cell. This is the ultimate test of leadership and respect for the law. If you want to see more content that breaks down these complex legal battles with honesty and depth, make sure to comment and subscribe now. As the final hours of the deadline approach, the nation is collectively holding its breath. This isn't just a story about one man, it's a story about the durability of the American Republic. It's about whether we truly believe in the words "equal justice under law" that are carved into the very building where this order originated. The outcome of the next few hours will define the legal legacy of Donald Trump, but more importantly, it will define the standard of accountability for every future president. Every second counts, every document matters, and the entire world is watching to see if America will hold its most powerful to the same standard as its most humble. The devil, as they say, is in the details, and for Donald Trump, those details are buried in thousands of pages of ledgers that the Supreme Court has now forced into the light. We aren't just looking at numbers on a balance sheet, we are looking at a roadmap of power, debt, and influence. Sources familiar with the materials describe a sprawling collection of tax returns, corporate filings, and bank statements that have been shielded from the public eye for decades. These documents are the key to answering the multi-billion-dollar question: what is the true nature of the Trump financial empire? From unusually high loans to potentially undervalued properties, every cent is now under a microscope that could reveal evidence of inconsistencies or undisclosed liabilities. This isn't just about a simple tax audit, it's about a litmus test for integrity at the highest levels of our republic. Legal analysts are already dissecting scenarios where assets might have been shuffled between companies to reduce tax liability or where personal guarantees on loans weren't properly reported. If these documents reveal even a hint of impropriety, it could ignite a cascade of legal consequences across multiple jurisdictions, from civil fines to full-blown criminal investigations. This is why the pressure is so intense. It's not just a political headache, it's a potential prosecutorial lever that could redefine his post-presidency. Any negative revelations will hit where it hurts most: his political standing, his fundraising capacity, and his grip on the Republican Party. Inside the legal war room, the atmosphere remains electric as attorneys sleep in shifts, trying to organize and redact what they can within this impossible window. They know that the Supreme Court's deadline carries real teeth, and failing to comply could trigger federal marshals to enforce the mandate. This is about more than just paperwork. It is a battle for the very soul of the American legal system. We must demand that our leaders be held to the same standards as every hardworking citizen who files their taxes every year. If you stand for transparency and the rule of law, make sure to comment your thoughts below and subscribe to this channel to keep this conversation alive. We also have to consider the long-term implications for the 2026 election cycle and the precedent this sets for future presidents. If the highest court in the land can force a former leader to expose his financial secrets within 24 hours, it changes the game for executive privilege forever. This ruling effectively tells every future occupant of the Oval Office that they are not above the law and that the clock will eventually run out on any attempt to hide the truth. While Trump's allies frame this as partisan overreach, the reality is that the judiciary is performing its constitutional duty to ensure accountability. It's a moment of seismic shifts in Washington, where the optics of a former president facing jail time for contempt could reshape voter perceptions for a generation. The reaction from the media has been a relentless 24-hour cycle of speculation and analysis, with hashtags trending and social media platforms exploding with debate. Conservative outlets are portraying Trump as a victim of a weaponized system, while others celebrate this as a necessary enforcement of justice. But through all the noise, the facts remain: the Supreme Court has issued an order, and the clock is nearing zero. Every signature, every line of a tax form, and every account balance is now a potential headline or a piece of evidence. This is high-stakes drama that combines legal maneuvering with the future of the American political landscape. As we wrap up this analysis, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of country do we want to be? Do we want a nation where the powerful can hide behind delays and legal technicalities, or do we want a system where the truth is the ultimate authority? This 24-hour ultimatum is a defining moment for our justice system and for the concept of presidential accountability. Whether Trump complies fully or chooses to risk escalation, the precedent has been set. The law applies to everyone, even those who have held the highest office in the land. The world is watching, the nation is judging, and the final seconds are ticking away. This has been a deep dive into the most critical legal standoff in recent history, and we will be here to bring you every update as the situation evolves. The fight for accountability doesn't end here. It is a continuous process that requires an engaged and informed public. If you believe in the power of independent journalism and the importance of holding power to account, then this is the place for you. Don't let the mainstream narrative distract you from the facts of the case and the gravity of the court's decision. We are committed to bringing you the truth, no matter how complex or controversial it may be. Make sure to comment below with your take on whether this 24-hour deadline is a victory for justice or a step too far. Your voice matters in this debate, and we want to hear from every side of the political spectrum. And finally, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a beat in this unfolding saga. We are on the clock, the country is on the clock, and the future of American leadership is hanging in the balance. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next update as we track the final moments of this historic countdown.